Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. I want to thank everybody for joining us on our webinar today. We're going to talk about strategic planning, more specifically towards what we're experiencing with COVID-19 and also marketing planning coming out of COVID-19, what we can do to take our business to the next level and additionally plan for other instances of pandemics or other disasters that might hinder operations. I'm sure a lot of you, like us and everybody else, is feeling much of a pinch through this whole epidemic situation. And this is part of strategic business planning that most people hadn't thought of prior to this actually occurring. And I'm one of them. When you think about business risk, this isn't something I ever imagined happening. But now that it has happened, and now that most businesses are currently shut down for the pandemic, it's important that we be mindful, put plans in place now to, one, keep cash flow coming into our businesses, and two, prepare for when this happens again. I'm going to say when because it's not probably an if. We've set a new precedent now for closing schools and businesses. And so I think that we'll probably see more of this, unfortunately. So I'm Nathan Neal, a serial entrepreneur. I own a couple different businesses. I'm an author, a published researcher, and I'm a licensed project management professional. That credential essentially looks at the ability of managing large-scale projects, well over $1 million, $10 million, and be able to manage the finances for that and essentially organize overall business operations. So I have a good understanding in terms of big picture within the businesses that I run and within businesses that are run by my clients, my friends, and my colleagues. I'm the primary owner of Launch UX, the principal, and we're a digital agency that does web design, SEO, strategic planning, and e-commerce conversion. And that's becoming more and more practical now with this COVID-19, since more businesses are unable to operate from a physical retail location. They're relying on internet revenue to sustain their business. The same also goes for the information technology company that I own. It's SoLinkit, and that's a technology consulting agency. And again, right now with COVID-19, we've made a shift to focus more on remote access for businesses to access their files, for employees to work remotely. And additionally, with our experience in HIPAA, telemedicine's really become a huge thing. And within a lot of the consultations I've done within the last week, I'm seeing where video and sessions like this that we're on right now with Zoom have a lot of potential to help sustain a lot of businesses that are used to face-to-face communication. So I'm assuming that most of you probably have established businesses or are in the process of doing your own business planning, and you've probably seen this traditional strategic plan processing before. And it's a great plan. It's what I had studied. It's what I've grown with. But what I want to talk about primarily today is within the second step, our SWOT analysis. When we look at opportunities and threats, I never considered a global pandemic or government shutdown of business a possible threat, at least within the United States. So that's something that really never came up. So it's not something that is in my plan, and probably not in most of your business plans. You know, we plan for things like natural disasters. What happens if a building catches on fire? Where's my data? Things of that nature. But a statewide or national shutdown of business due to a pandemic is a little bit different. And it's forcing a lot of businesses that started to use online mechanisms to rely on them a lot more, and businesses that hadn't started going in that direction to really start to consider them. Of course, right now, if you're starting from scratch, it's a little bit tougher because the cash flow might not be there. So what I kind of want to discuss is how we go about putting together a risk assessment plan and ensure the continuity of our business. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm not a big presentation guy, so I want to get rid of my screen share there. Still adapting to this whole online thing, but I still think it's nice to have a face to talk face to face with. But anyhow, I wrote about this in my one book, The Founder's Guide. It's about 3 years old, but it's still a good book about risk assessment. And traditionally, we would think of risk assessment as in, what do I do if my building burns down? What do I do if I have employees that leave suddenly? What happens if something happens to me where I'm sick and I can't work? Those are all risks that we anticipate. They're unknown if they're going to happen, but they're known unknowns. And what we're in right now is a series where everything that we're experiencing is unknown to a degree where we really have no idea what we're actually dealing with. So it makes it really hard to plan. So what we got to look at now within our risk assessment is, if business is shut down for 2 more weeks, then what is my option? If business shut down for another month, what's my option? If I can't carry out retail operations for a year, what are my options? So we have to look at it in terms of that, in terms of how do we keep the business functioning? And unfortunately, face-to-face and in-person and in-office isn't possible anymore. So a couple key things to have as part of the response plan, and what we've started to implement and we're seeing great success with, is to first have a communication plan in place. I'm assuming a lot of you have staff members, and probably like me, I'm not planning on letting anybody go until the last minute. I want to completely avoid layoffs. So keeping everybody working is critical. So we are utilizing tools like Microsoft Teams, Slack, and Zoom, those 3 platforms, and there's others, to keep communication going on. And so in the case of a shutdown or in a pandemic, my method is to have a video conference in the morning with your staff and to maybe have one at the end of the day. So even though you're working remotely, you can still have a certain level of control over your business process and know where everybody is at in terms of their projects, what needs worked on, and where things are going. The other thing as part of that communication plan is employees that would traditionally go out on site and work with customers, finding alternative things for them to do. And that might be part of looking at how to continue the business model or find ways of gaining revenue through video or online sales. So a lot of these things are really important. So as a business owner myself within the technical company, I'm seeing where supplies are difficult to come by. It's difficult to get hard drives. It's difficult to get memory and other materials. So some of the things I'm looking at that might be a better idea in the future is to keep a stock of a certain number of products. I never like to hold on to an excessive amount of inventory because you never know if it's going to get outdated or what the situation might be. But now I'm looking back on that decision with a little bit of regret because I don't have the hardware I necessarily need for that tech company as easily as I would. I've talked with a lot of other business owners that get supplies from all over the globe, and a lot of them are running into similar problems as well within their supply chains. So it's something that I never really considered, but as part of our risk plan, what do we do if our supply chain breaks down? And so that's something that's really hitting home for a lot of businesses. So I know some retail stores that are having a hard time getting additional inventory in. And now granted they're closed, but they're still trying to operate online and get some revenue in. Still got to pay the rent, but they're having a very difficult time getting inventory. So that's something we got to think of. How do we keep selling when the inventory supplies are broken within our supply chain? The other thing is, what do you do with essential staff? Especially, I see a lot of people on the call with IT companies. And essential staff, you're used to sending them out on site, out doing consultations and things of that nature. So you have to find different ways to pivot. A couple of the things we've been doing is we've been moving to Zoom consultations, although they're not the same as being able to see a client or a network face to face, but it still provides a method of continuing things. The other thing I'm noticing, and what's really good about companies that were more proactive, is those that had already established remote capabilities. So the ability to work remotely, the ability to remote into client computers, and the ability to work from home. I think that coming out of this current situation, it's going to be paramount that we have these mechanisms in place because, like I said, it's probably going to happen again. So to have the ability to work from home, to have employees know what their responsibilities are when working from home, if they would traditionally be somebody that was working within your store, and to also have that communication plan in place is really critical. Those three elements, I believe, are very essential. As business owners, though, we also have to look at a couple other things. And these are touchy topics right now, but one of the main things is how long can you survive and operate in a purely online way? And I think as we go down the road and as we make it through this process longer and get more familiarized with these processes, it's going to improve. But right now, I have a lot of businesses telling me that they're not going to be able to survive 2, 3, or 4 months without being able to reopen and resume normal operations. So that's kind of an area where we need to look at within our risk planning and our strategic plan is how do we keep revenue coming in the instance where this would occur? So there's a couple things we can do because you have whatever money you have. There's loans available, but not all the time is taking out a loan the necessarily best decision. But to keep the business continuing is obviously the goal. So the main things to look at are what can I scale back on? And right now that's a hard thing to decide because obviously we're hoping we get back into our offices, so we can't scale back on rent. We obviously can't scale back on internet and other things, but trying to look and find different things that you could scale back on to extend what runway you have during limited operations is really important. So there might be subscriptions or memberships or something that's unique to your business that can be cut back on. Now, there's some things you won't want to cut back on, and that is things like marketing. Because if you cut back on marketing during a situation like this, when we come back out and have a resurgence, if you haven't had a presence in the market, that's really going to prevent you from experiencing the surge that is going to be coming, when the market stimulates back up. So the other thing is to focus on what revenue streams you can add. So there's always ways to add additional revenue. And I'm going to give a couple examples of other businesses that have been doing this in the last couple of weeks. And maybe one of them will spur an idea within you that gives you an idea on how to generate additional revenue. So I have one customer that I'm working with who owns a cooking school, and they sell tickets for cooking classes. And normally you would do this, one-on-one within the cooking school. But right now with social distancing and the closure of these retail operations, how do you keep that business operational? Well, what we're looking at now is using the same ticketing platform they did before, but have them get groceries delivered to their homes and experience the cooking class over Zoom, kind of like we're doing in this video call right now. Again, it's a difference, it's a change, but it still allows things to kind of continue. Another big area we're seeing video really making a huge impact is within telemedicine and telehealth. We're currently working with about 5 therapists and psychiatrists, and a lot of them are moving on to the telehealth program. Obviously, right now, people's anxiety and stresses are high, so their model, which they've had to adapt very, very quick, is to move to a online telehealth model. Again, not as ideal, harder to take weight and blood pressure when you're, going across the video screen, but it keeps the business operational. Some other businesses like retail operations, and this is exactly what I suggest to my clients, is if you don't have e-commerce and cash is tight, don't launch a full-blown e-commerce system and start selling all of your products online. What I recommend doing is looking at your invoicing software or whatever you manage your accounts with and see what are your best sellers and what are your best sellers that generate you the best margins on your sale. Pick a good handful of products and start an e-commerce website with your primary products that sell really well for you. It's a good way to get started. You can get ramped up quickly and you can start to get some revenue in. But I really think that when we go back to our strategic planning and our risk assessment, we need to think of this being a real possibility of, one, this epidemic lasting longer than we want it to, and two, I mean, this could very well happen next year. So what I'm encouraging everyone to do within my clients, my friends and colleagues, is to revisit their strategic plan right now, because we're kind of locked down and there's not as much we can do, to look at it, see what we can do to enhance our business to keep revenues coming in, even if our physical locations are shut down. And two, find ways to set up a firm platform and an actual company policy to handle remote work. Even if that means employees' duties change, but you can prevent from having to lay off staff members, just repurpose them into doing other areas. I think that's really critical to keep things moving forward. And I think it allows us to be much more flexible in that regard. There are a lot of loans and small business opportunities available that have been promoted. Again, I don't know if I'm necessarily a large fan, but if you're waiting on receivables from your customers that are closed, nobody's in there to cut the checks, maybe a small business loan to bridge the gap until you collect those receivables is the right method for you as part of your strategic plan. But we don't know if that's going to be available the next time. The Small Business Development Center says to have about 18 to 24 months of a runway, which to me seems really difficult for a small business owner. I think it's pretty much all small business owners in here. That's a lot of money to have to just be burning through it over 2 years with not receiving any income. So I really don't see that as being practical. But what I am encouraging people to do is to bank up about an 8-month leeway to cover salaries, wages, and things. That way you at least have a nice firm foundation to spread cost across, and then you don't have to worry about money or losing your business. You'll be able to make it through a risk that we never really thought we were going to have to deal with before. These are uncharted waters, and it's an area of strategic planning that was never really thought of or looked at before. And it's the same when you look at marketing. So what Crystal's going to be talking about, no one has experienced this type of area where we're shut down. And now that we're shut down and we can start to plan those additional revenue streams, what we're going to add to our businesses, how we're going to repurpose employees, now we need to look at the recovery. And what do we do as we're coming out of this thing to capitalize on the people that have been locked up in their houses for weeks finally being able to leave their homes, or the businesses that us professional service companies work with finally being able to return to their office and get back to normal operations. So while we're looking at the strategic plan of our business, this is meant to be more of an encouragement to look into your current processes, because this isn't part of the strategic planning chart. The SWOT analysis mentions threats and it mentions risk assessment, but again, this is a risk assessment I think that few people have actually thought was going to occur, me being one of them. So now I'm actually really excited to move things over to Crystal to talk about, after we get through our planning and after we figure out what we're going to do to increase our revenue streams, to keep our business afloat and to keep our employees employed, how do we take advantage when the system comes back around.
Can you guys see my screen? Hopefully you can see my screen. Maybe. That is a yes. Perfect. Thank you guys. So real quick, who am I? My name is Crystal. I run a company in Gettysburg called Misfit Interactive, and I've honestly, just to date myself a little bit, been in the web design industry since the mid-90s when I was in high school, and I made really, really bad websites back then. So I've spent the last 11 years freelancing, 9 years working for larger agencies, and then I started Misfit 6 years ago, and I am just full of all kinds of online marketing nerdery that we're going to go over today, just to kind of give people that extra boost and that guideline to follow once we start getting into what should we do now if we can't work and we're not in the office. And the goal is to obviously keep calm and market on. So first things first, don't panic, at least not much. I know I say that, it's easy to say that, but right now I think everybody that owns a business is just so unsure what the future holds and how their businesses are going to thrive in the coming weeks that it's hard not to, but there are things that you can do. So I kind of want to focus on the good things and not worry about too much of the bad things. So the first thing on my list is to keep a budget. And I say that it makes sense to cut back on your paid advertising. That's kind of a logical decision. I don't think anybody would say, you know, keep doing exactly what you're doing when you don't have the same income that you had prior to this pandemic. But for SEO and marketing, it's a long game, so you're still investing in that process. So there's still a necessary budget that you need to keep for this particular item of your business. And you kind of want to count on the fact that others are going to be in a panic and neglecting their own long game, so this actually gives you the opportunity. And making the decision to cut your budget at this time is more reactionary than it is strategic. So we're going to focus more on the strategy part of things. We are going to carpe potestatem, which is basically Latin for seize the opportunity. And the first thing on the list I want people to kind of just keep an eye on is checking that back burner. Right now, this is kind of that time to stay on that course and tackle all the things that have been on that back burner for so long. Now that you have the extra time, there's a lot of impactful SEO and marketing tasks that you can kind of tackle now while you have the time. Whereas once we start rolling again, you might be so busy you can't tackle these. So it's a pretty good idea to start tackling them now. So here's a couple actual steps that we can follow. Number one, I always suggest interviews for not only your customers, but also your employees. We're all on Zoom right now. Why can't we use this tool to start recording calls with our clients? And the reason I say that is you can actually start to talk to them about your products and services and maybe turn that into more like a testimonial format. Maybe it can be a testimonial video. Maybe you can take transcriptions from these conversations that you're having with your clients and turn them into something you can use for your website, for social marketing, maybe future videos that you create for your business. So a good thing right now is talk to your clients. You know, they're still in the same, not panic, but in the same situation you are. They probably have the extra time. Maybe they want something to do. Maybe they want to support their favorite companies. I know here in Gettysburg, we've had people going around pasting, I want to say it's like little, not cardboard, but construction paper hearts with messages saying Gettysburg is here to support you to all the local businesses that are being affected by that. And it's so inspiring that people really want to help support the local businesses right now. And this is a good way to do that, is to open up that dialogue with them. Number two, audit your content assets. What do I mean? An audit obviously takes time and consideration, but now you have the time, so let's make that consideration. And what I mean by content assets is basically what we're going to do is we're going to basically create a Google spreadsheet, and I'm going to go through a list of what type of content and assets I'm talking about. Number one, websites. If you have a website, let's do kind of an audit on the content you have there. Is there stuff that can be refreshed? Is there content that can be added to? Are you missing content? Are all your services displayed in the correct way that really describe it for your users, that they're not in your industry, so maybe they don't understand it as much, but is there a way you can better explain that to them? Your email list, your blog posts. Is there a series of blog posts that have been sitting on the back burner that you've been meaning to write that you could write now, that you have the time? White papers, so these are basically the downloadable documents that you can provide for free or for a low cost to clients, going over certain aspects for them and how they can better run their businesses. Ebooks that you've talked about. Nathan obviously showed one of his books that he wrote earlier. Is there a way you can do an inventory on what books you have available so we can kind of reevaluate what we can do next? Presentations like this. I've got a ton of presentations sitting in my archive right now that I've done in the past, and I've kind of planned to go through all of them, see if I can update them, and then maybe reformat them and re-release them as like a part 2 or an advanced version of that same presentation. What marketing videos have you created? Can you reuse some of that content? Do you have them all together in one file organization, or do you have some that are missing and you don't know where they are? Infographics, is there certain things that you've created in the past that we could kind of redo, or are there new infographic topics you can tackle? Kind of making an inventory now of what you've already done allows you to be like, all right, well, now I know what I need to do in the future. And then, of course, articles published either externally by you, like if you're writing for another source, or maybe somebody wrote an article about you. But having all of that information available and in a spreadsheet that you can access, so you know this is everything that we have. This is a good time to do that. Continuing on with auditing, what pieces can you repurpose for your other channels? Maybe you did an Instagram photo or campaign or video that did really well. Maybe you can make that longer, because Instagram has certain limits that you can now post on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn has an 80% conversion rate, whereas Facebook has like a 3% conversion rate. Excuse me. What got the most shares and backlinks in your social marketing over the last 3 months that maybe you could reformat into something different? And which one gave you the most traffic to your website? Maybe that's the type of campaign you need to move forward with in order to get more traffic to your website, which theoretically during this time you'll have updated as well. Continuing on with auditing, some ideas: you could update your channels with fresh content. So if you've neglected your Instagram lately, creating new graphics for those, going through stuff that you had posted on LinkedIn 5 years ago that maybe you could update and now post on Instagram. Or maybe you're looking at TikTok. TikTok's becoming a huge marketing thing right now. I mean, everybody is on it. Howie Mandel's on it, and The Rock is on it. So if they're on it, you should be on it too. Optimizing with new call to actions, maybe new buttons, maybe change the color of your buttons. It's an interesting science when you play around with colors, which one really attract the eye. So maybe there's a different color you can use to attract people to click that button, fill out that form, or join your mailing list, or check out this service. Play with the colors, play with the keywords that are on your site. These are things that you can start to do now to prepare for when business starts up again, being ahead of your competition. You can start adding internal links to your new products. Maybe you've had new products you haven't had a chance to go through and link elsewhere throughout your site, or maybe a new service. Maybe I started a new service and I forgot that I wrote a blog article last year. That would be great to link to that service, because you want to interlink as much of your pages on your website as possible, because that's going to help your SEO in the long run. And then, of course, auditing your current links and make sure that none of them are broken. Maybe you have a better article about a product or a service that you should link to rather than this old link that you had from last year as well. And then re-promote when business picks back up. Number 3, planning webinars. So 91% of the web professionals say that webinars are their favorite content format for learning. So keep your interactions up with your customers and your audience. A lot of people, I've noticed, they kind of just stopped doing social media when all of this started, or they just started talking about things that weren't relevant to their business. You kind of want to just keep up with your pace that you had prior to this, and then really reinforce that as we come out of this, because you don't want people to start forgetting about your company and what it is that you do. You can start answering frequently asked questions. You can introduce new team members, products, or features. And these are things that I would post on like your social media or even on your blog. You can inspire seasonal bookings for later in the year if that's something that you do. But there's certain things that you can still keep up with on your social media that you don't want to slack off on it, basically. Number 4, clean up some of your administrative messes. Now is a great time to fine-tune your administrative process for a cleaner workflow in the future. One of the things I hate doing as a business owner is, well, one, my inbox is constantly full, and that tends to bite me in the butt. And then reading my actual mail, Like I'll have a pile of papers and I hate paper, so I try to make everything digital. One thing I could do is try to figure out a process to make this easier so my inbox doesn't constantly get full, so my mail pile that's sitting here, even while I'm giving this webinar, doesn't just sit there and get ignored. So there's certain processes that we can work on in the future that will make business easier and will also let you be more focused on your marketing in the future. You can start writing new content or adding to old content to improve your SEO. I have probably 15 to 20 blog posts in my archive that I haven't written yet, and now's a great time for me to start working and hammering those out. And one thing that even Nathan can back me up on this probably is that Google looks at is it's not necessarily adding frequent new content on your site that's going to help your SEO. It's adding or updating content or making it longer for older articles that were already on your site. And that's not saying to not build new articles for your website, but it helps more if you have an article that does really well, expand on that. You know, make that longer, make that more in tune with new technology or new ideas. And then set up a new schedule for your marketing, whether it's your emails or your social media. Maybe look, there's certain insights that you can get on Facebook that show you, well, my users are always on at 5 p.m. or maybe my users are always on at 8 a.m. or maybe that 3 p.m. brick wall that we all hit. This could be the time that you need to start scheduling your posts rather than always setting them for 8 a.m. or always setting them for 8 p.m. You know, figuring out a new schedule, making sure everything, maybe your email marketing campaigns do better in the morning, maybe they do better at night. You know, figuring out the data and then changing your process there. Number 5, to create some videos. So if you ever struggled with finding time to create video, obviously now is the perfect time because we're all sitting at home watching Netflix and Tiger King like I was last night. Embed and transcribe your videos and blog posts and social media. So I can't emphasize enough how important it is to create video because video is what people are watching now. LinkedIn has created its own live video formatting, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Instagram has Instagram TV now. Everybody's going to video because nobody likes to read. So I always encourage people to create videos, and we'll talk about this a little more as I try to get through this in 30 minutes, but I want people to focus on thinking of ideas for videos that they can create, and then now starting to take those videos and embedding them on your website, putting them on social media. Transcribe the videos as well because you could use text from these videos in other social media campaigns further on. And then maybe take 5 to 10 quotes from your videos and make an Instagram post or make an infographic or make some sort of webinar like this that you can post. You can post PDF webinars on LinkedIn and people can actually search through those and learn from them. So you can take quotes from all these videos that you're doing and just go ahead and put them in some kind of creative document or graphic that you can use later on in your marketing. So number 6, check your online review strategy. One of the things that you can do is start looking at the reviews that you have gotten on Google, Facebook, Yelp, and maybe start answering all of the reviews. It's always a good idea to answer reviews or respond to them even if they're bad, but obviously we don't want to do a knee-jerk reaction. You want to respond professionally, but it's always good to acknowledge that people have an opinion about your business. If you just ignore it and don't respond, people are going to see that when they go and read reviews and be like, well, this guy, he doesn't care what his clients think or anything like that. So, you know, respond to all of your reviews. It helps your SEO, it shows engagement and considerations with your clients' opinions. Maybe create a review policy and train an employee to manage reviews going forward. So maybe you don't have the time to constantly look at your reviews and respond to your reviews or to even promote your reviews, although we should, but you can always train somebody and start creating a policy of this is what I want you to do and this is how I want you to manage my reviews and this is how I want you to respond to all of the bad reviews or a bad review that we've gotten. So you can create some templates of responses and go over the message that you want your brand to portray in your response to these people. You can coach them on how to respond to these negative reviews, and then don't ever think that you shouldn't ask for reviews from your clients. It's always important to ask for reviews. Every email you send out, every email marketing letter, you should have a link. Make it easy for them. Show a link to your Google review page, show a link to your Facebook review page. If you make it easy for them to do it, they're more inclined to do it. Number 7, get behind the digital. Oops. I hit a button I didn't mean to. So Can your business function on the cloud? If your business is suffering during the stay-at-home period, maybe you need to make changes or upgrades to function better in the future. And this is something that Nathan is definitely the go-to person about this with. So Linkit, they are excellent at being able to create people the strategy with how they can function as a business through networking or through cloud storage or whatever. But can your business function on the cloud? Fortunately, mine can. Mine is almost entirely on the cloud, but are all of your administrative systems able to be done from home? Can your payroll be done from home? Can your, I'm trying to think of some other examples. Can you guys have meetings from home through Zoom or GoToMeeting or whatever? Can you run your meetings virtually, and can you have discussions through Slack with your clients? Nathan talked about that earlier. He gave some suggestions for software you can use, but they're all very important to consider now so that you can move forward. I have a chat. Oh yeah, managed billing. Nathan mentioned managed billing. That's a really important one. So number 8, update your Google and Bing Places business profiles. So one of the things people might not realize is that you can edit the information that displays on Google for your site. And if you ever do a search for a company and you see that box on the right of the search results, it has all the data for a particular company. You can edit all of that. I mean, you can edit your phone number, your hours, make sure all of your services are listed. People don't realize that on your Google profile, your business profile, you can actually list your services and your prices. Like, having that text associated with your brand on Google's system is only going to help your SEO. So make sure you have that updated. Log into google.com/business. It's free if you don't have one. You all should have one. That's what kind of gives that little map pin on Google when you're looking for someone locally. So everybody should have one, but go in there and see what else you can edit. They're constantly adding new features. You can have photos of your portfolio, you can have photos of your building, you can have photos of yourself meeting with a client just to show that, you know, you're active, and that's important. And then you can actually have messaging through your Google profile. People can send you a message through Google, kind of like Facebook Messenger, but it's through Google. So you can activate that and start letting people contact you directly through Google. Number 9 is show your website some love. Personally, I recommend that websites should be have a complete redo every 2 to 5 years. I prefer every 2 years for me, but I'm in an industry that makes sense because we're in web design. So every 2 years, I want to show something fresh and new. For companies that aren't necessarily online focused, you know, you can push it to like 5 years, but every couple years you want to have a redo of your website design. You don't want it to be stale because people will notice that and they'll be like, oh, well, their website looks like it's from 1998. And there are still websites out there like that. I swear to you there are. And it bugs me every time because there should be no reason that your websites are that old. Does your website still reflect your brand properly? Are there ways to simplify your website for your customers? Is it hard for them to find things? Do they have to do 3 or more clicks to get to the content that they need? If they do, then that's something you need to fix. No more than 3 clicks. If you can dumb it down to 1 or 2, even better. But simplify the process for your customers, because your website's not for you. Your website's for your customers. And are you collecting email addresses through your website? Every contact form, whether it's an appointment form, a normal contact form, request an estimate form, all of these have the opportunity to collect email addresses and automatically add it to your email marketing platform. MailChimp, Constant Contact, there's the technology out there to set it up so that every time someone sends you a message, it's automatically added. That way you don't have to manually do that. But there's certain things like this that just make things easier and will show that your website is an actual tool for marketing your business. Number 10, don't let your relationship drop off. And the reason I say this is if your customers are used to hearing you through a particular avenue, don't let that go away. You know, don't go silent just because we're having this pandemic. And I understand it's hard and it's stressful, but still be there and be open to talking with your customers, even if you're not able to provide business with them. Stay in the forefront of their mind and don't use tacky coronavirus marketing tactics. I've already seen some, like, there's been companies out there that are talking about, you know, here's a great deal on N95 masks and blah, 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 like, but in a tacky way. I think you guys kind of know what I'm talking about. I should have come up with an example before I got on here, but you don't want to be tacky about it, but you do want to show that you're giving back or supporting your community. So if you have a restaurant and you're doing takeout, great. Nothing wrong with that. If you have a restaurant and you're talking about your coronavirus discount, that's kind of tacky. Like, just don't be tacky about it, I guess is where I'm trying to go with that. Can you host a live video session that is kind of a question and answer for your customers? That's an idea you can do on your social media. Do a Facebook Live, talk to them directly, let them see you give tips and tricks or see you do a process that maybe they didn't understand before. Educate them. It's one of the things that we've marketed as Misfit Interactive. It's called the Misfit 3 E's. And it's you want to educate, entertain, or engage with your customers. That's really all social media should be about 80% of the time. 20% of the time, that's when you actually want to market and talk about, check out this new service, check out this new deal that we got going on. But 80% of the time, you want to follow those Misfit 3 E's of educate, entertain, or engage your customers. So let your customers know how your company is reacting to the virus. Maybe there's a new company policy, maybe you're washing down all the counters, like simple stuff like that. But let them know that you're taking action, let them know that you're engaged and that you're still around. And what are you doing to help the community right now? I know there was a company I watched on the news earlier. I want to say it was a construction company, and they were on the news because they're donating, like, I want to say 75, or maybe it was half. It might have been 75% of their masks that they had left over to medical professionals. And that's just a good way to get some more news out there about your company. It's all PR, and it's all important. So when all else fails, always tell your story. There's nothing wrong with telling personal, like, obviously not drama, but be a real person behind your business. You are the face of your business, and it's important for people to be able to relate to you. If you're nothing but corporate, I could follow Pepsi on Facebook all day long, but I don't know who's behind Pepsi. And if all they do is talk about how great they are, I'm not going to be engaged and I'm not going to follow them. But if I see a company out there that's really putting themselves out there and they're providing value to all of their followers, that is what is important. So that's pretty much all I had. I hope that you guys learned some stuff. If you have any questions about marketing, definitely give me a shout out on Twitter or Instagram, Facebook. I'm pretty much online consistently every day, every night, probably in my sleep. I don't know if I tweet in my sleep. That is entirely possible. But, if you have anything that you would like to add, definitely let me know. We're more than happy to walk people through some ideas, some inspiration, and through the process of continuing to market, even though we don't really have a lot of business going on right now. So hopefully that was useful, and I will stop sharing now. Nathan, did you have anything else you wanted to go over? I think I tried to rush through it so I wouldn't be over, but I think we got about 15 minutes.
Well, does anybody have any questions that they want to ask or any specifics? I think Crystal and I have both worked through a couple things with our different clients that we might be able to provide suggestions tailored to whatever your specific business might be.
Thank you, Samantha, for attending. I appreciate the participation.
So if there's no questions, kind of the thing I wanted to leave with is just the main trait among all of us entrepreneurs is the ability to persist and to keep going. And
yeah, I think it's very important. I think it's important to understand that, you may not be having a lot of income coming in right now. I know that my business has certainly dropped. Not a lot of people are purchasing marketing right now, but I think it's important to understand that your business isn't just about making money, it's about making relationships. So I think that keeping that in mind, you can kind of find ideas in order to continue to market and display your brand even while we're in this downturn right now.
And that's all I have for this webinar. We're going to actually post the video online. So we'll save it after we get off here. Like Crystal, I don't sleep. So contact information for both my companies and my own personal Twitter is on there. So especially if you're into anything medical or looking to work from home, there's definitely solutions that we can help out with. Social media, Crystal absolutely rocks that. So I actually got a lot from your presentation, Crystal, that I'm going to bother you after we get offline here on this webinar. So, but I want to thank everybody for attending. And if you have any questions, be sure to reach out to either of us. And have a great Thursday. Tomorrow's Friday, then the weekend, and I guess we'll just continue to all stay at home.
I tell you what, if you're not watching Tiger King on Netflix, it is the weirdest train wreck ever, and I can't stop watching it. Everybody's talking about it on social media right now, and if you can incorporate that somehow in your marketing just for fun, I love it when brands are fun. So definitely consider that. Watch it. See if you can engage with those people.
Okay, well, I'm gonna have to check that out. Need something new to binge watch. But thanks, everybody.
See you guys.
Bye.